The Colombo crime family is the youngest of the 5 families that dominates organized crime activities in New York City, United States, within the nationwide criminal phenomenon known as the Mafia, or Cosa Nostra. In 1928, Joe Profeci formed the Profeci crime family. Profeci would rule his family without interruption or challenge until the late 1950s. The family has been torn by 3 internal wars. The first war took place during the late 1950s when Capo Joey Gallo revolted against Profeci. The first war lost momentum in the early 1960s when Gallo was arrested and Profeci died of cancer. The family then came together during the regime of boss Joseph Colombo. In 1971, the Second Family War began after Gallo's release from prison and the shooting of Colombo. Colombo supporters led by Carmine Persico won the war after the exiling of the Gallo crew to the Genovese family in 1975. The family would now enjoy 2 decades of peace under Persico and his string of acting bosses. In 1991, the third and bloodiest war erupted when acting boss Vittorio Orena tried to seize power from the imprisoned boss Carmine Persico. The family split into factions loyal to Orena and Persico, and 2 years of mayhem ensued. In 1993, with 12 family members dead and Orena imprisoned, Persico was the winner more or less by default. He was left with a family decimated by war. In the 2000s, the family was crippled by multiple convictions in federal racketeering cases and numerous members becoming government witnesses. Most observers believe that the Colombo crime family is the weakest of the 5 families of New York City. Origins. In September 1921, Joe Profeci arrived in New York City from Villa Bate, Sicily, Italy. After struggling in Chicago with his businesses, Profeci moved back to Brooklyn in 1925 and became a well-known olive oil importer. On September 27, Profeci obtained his American citizenship. With his olive oil importing business doing well, Profeci made deals with friends from his old town in Sicily, and one of his largest buyers was Tampa mobster Ignazio Italiano. Profeci controlled a small criminal gang that operated mainly in Brooklyn. The dominant Cosa Nostra groups in Brooklyn were led by Salvatore D'Aquila, Frankie Yale, Giuseppe Masuria, and Nicola Schiro. On July 1, 1928, Brooklyn mobster Frankie Yale was murdered by Chicago outfit boss Al Capone's hitmen. Capone murdered Yale because Yale refused to give Capone, a Neapolitan, control over the Union Siciliana Fraternal Association. Yale's murder allowed Profeci and his brother-in-law Joseph Magliocco to gain territory for their small gang. Profeci's gang gained territory in Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Red Hook, and Carroll Gardens, while the rest of Yale's group went to the Masuria family. On October 10, 1928, the Capo di Tutti Capi, Salvatore D'Aquila, was murdered, resulting in a fight for D'Aquila's territory. To prevent a gang war in Brooklyn, a Mafia meeting was called on December 5, 1928, at the Statler Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio. The site was chosen because it was neutral territory outside New York under Porello crime family control and protection. The main topic was dividing D'Aquila's territory. Attendees representing Brooklyn included Profeci, Magliocco, Vincent Mangano, who reported to D'Aquila family boss Alfred Mineo, Joseph Bonanno, who represented Salvatore Maranzano and the Castellamarese clan, Chicago mobsters Joseph Guinta and Pascal Lalordo, and Tampa mobster Ignazio Italiano. At the end of the meeting, Profeci received a share of D'Aquila's Brooklyn territory. The Castellamarese War. Months after the D'Aquila murder, Giuseppe Masuria began a campaign to become Capo di Tutti Capi, boss of bosses, in the United States demanding tribute from the remaining three mafia groups in New York City, which included the Reina family, the Castellamarese clan and the Profesi family. Castellamarese clan boss Salvatore Maranzano began his own campaign to become boss of bosses. This started the Castellamarese War. Masuria, along with his ally Alfred Mineo, the new boss of the D'Aquila family, ordered the murder of Gaetano Reina. Masuria believed that Reina was going to support Maranzano to become the new boss of bosses. On February 26, 1930, Gaetano Reina was murdered and Masuria appointed Joseph Pinzolo as the new boss of the Reina family. During the war, Profesi remained neutral, while he secretly supported Salvatore Maranzano. The Castellamarese War ended when Charles Luciano, a Masuria lieutenant, betrayed him to Maranzano. Luciano set up the murder of Giuseppe Masuria on April 15, 1931. Maranzano then became the new Capo di Tutti Capi in the United States. Within a few months, Maranzano and Luciano were plotting to kill each other. On September 10, 1931, Luciano had Salvatore Maranzano killed and created the Mafia Commission. Now there would be 5 independent Cosa Nostra families in New York City and 21 additional families across the United States that were regulated by a Supreme Commission in New York. First Family War, 1960 to 1963. Joe Profesi had become a wealthy mafia boss and was known as the olive oil and tomato paste king of America. One of Profesi's most unpopular demands was a $25 monthly tribute from every soldier in his family. In the late 1950s, Capo Frankie Shots Abate Marco became a problem for Joe Profesi. Abate Marco controlled a lucrative policy game that earned him nearly $2.5 million a year with an average of $7,000 a day in Red Hook, Brooklyn. In early 1959, Abate Marco, with the support of Gallo brothers and the Garfield boys, began refusing to pay tribute to Profesi. By late 1959, Abate Marco's debt had grown to $50,000 and Profesi allegedly ordered Joey Gallo to murder Abate Marco. However, other versions of the story indicate that Gallo played no part in this murder. In return for Abate Marco's murder, Profesi allegedly agreed to give the Gallos control over Abate Marco's policy game. On November 4, 1959, Frank Abate Marco walked out of his cousin's bar in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and was shot and killed by Joseph Gioeli and another hitman. Profesi then ordered the Gallos to hand over Abate Marco's son Anthony. The Gallos refused and Profesi refused to give them the policy game. This was the start of the First Colombo War. The Gallo brothers and the Garfield boys, led by Carmine Persico, were aligned against Profesi and his loyalists. On February 27, 1961, the Gallos kidnapped 4 of Profesi's top men, underboss Joseph Magliocco, Frank Profesi, Joe Profesi's brother, Capo Salvatore Musacchio and soldier John Cimone. Profesi himself eluded capture and flew to Sanctuary in Florida. While holding the hostages, Larry and Albert Gallo sent Joey Gallo to California. Profesi's consigliere Charles the Sigillo Cicero negotiated with the Gallos and all the hostages were released peacefully. However, Profesi had no intention of honoring this peace agreement. On August 20, 1961, Joseph Profesi ordered the murder of Gallo members Joseph Joe Jelly Gioeli and Larry Gallo. Gunmen allegedly murdered Gioeli after inviting him to go deep-sea fishing. Gallo survived a strangulation attempt in the Sahara Club of East Flatbush by Carmine Persico and Salvatore Sali D'Ambrosio after a police officer intervened. The Gallos then began calling Persico the Snake. He had betrayed them. The war continued on, resulting in 9 murders and 3 disappearances. In late November 1961, Joey Gallo was sentenced to 7 to 14 years in prison for murder. In 1962, Joe Professai died of cancer, leaving Joseph Magliocco, his longtime underboss, as the new boss. The war continued on between the two factions. In 1963, Carmine Persico survived a car bombing and his enforcer Hugh McIntosh was shot in the groin as he attempted to kill Larry Gallo. On May 19, 1963, a Gallo hit team shot Carmine Persico multiple times, but Persico survived. In 1963, Magliocco and Bonanno boss Joseph Bonanno hatched an audacious plan to murder powerful bosses Carlo Gambino, Gaetano Lucchese, Stefano Megadino, and Frank DeSimone and take over the Mafia Commission. Joseph Magliocco gave the murder contact to Joseph Colombo. Colombo either feared for his life, or sensed an opportunity for advancement, and instead reported the plot to the commission. Both Magliocco and Bonanno were forced to retire. Colombo and Italian-American Civil Rights League. In 1963, the commission rewarded Joseph Colombo for his loyalty by allowing him to take over the Professai family, which he renamed the Colombo family. The 41-year-old Colombo was the youngest boss in New York at the time. He was also the first boss to have been born and raised in the United States. Along with former Gallo crew member Nicholas Bianco and New England family boss Raymond Patriarca, Colombo was able to end the war. As a reward for his loyalty, Bianco was made into the Patriarca crime family. As boss, Colombo brought peace and stability to the broken crime family. However, some Cosa Nostra bosses viewed Colombo as Carlo Gambino's puppet boss and felt he never deserved the title. Colombo's leadership was never challenged due to his support from Carlo Gambino. In 1968, Gallo crew leader Larry Gallo died of cancer. In 1969, Colombo founded the Italian-American Civil Rights League, dedicated to fighting discrimination against Italian Americans. Many mobsters disapproved of the league because it brought unwanted public attention to the Cosa Nostra. Colombo ignored their concerns and continued gaining support for his league. On July 28, 1970, Colombo held the first league demonstration, a big success. In 1971, months before the second demonstration, the other New York bosses ordered their men to stay away from the demonstration and not support Colombo's cause. Also in 1971, Colombo lost one of his biggest supporters, the league's chief organizer Gambino family capo Joseph DeSicco, who had become ill and resigned. In 1971, Joey Gallo was also released from prison. At the time of his release, Gallo said the 1963 peace agreement did not apply to him because he was in prison when it was negotiation. Second Family War, 1971 to 1975. On June 28, 1971, Joseph Colombo held the Second League demonstration at Columbus Circle in Manhattan. As Colombo prepared to speak, an African-American man, Jerome Johnson, walked up to Colombo and shot him in the back of the head 3 times. Seconds later, Colombo's bodyguards shot Johnson to death. The shooting did not kill Colombo but left him paralyzed for 7 years. He died of natural causes on May 22, 1978. Although many in the Colombo crime family blamed Joey Gallo for the shooting, the police eventually concluded that Johnson was a lone gunman. Regardless, the Colombo shooting triggered the Second Colombo War. Colombo's consigliere Joseph Iacovelli became the family acting boss, and he directed a new campaign to murder Joey Gallo and his crew. On April 7, 1972, acting on a quick tip, 4 gunmen walked into Umberto's Clam House in Little Italy and killed Joey Gallo as he was dining with his family. Looking for revenge, Albert Gallo sent a gunman from Las Vegas to the Neapolitan Noodle restaurant in Manhattan, where Joseph Iacovelli, Alphonse Aliboy Persico, and Gennaro Langella were dining one day. However, the gunman did not recognize the mobsters and shot 4 innocent diners instead, killing 2 of them. After this assassination attempt, Iacovelli fled New York, leaving Carmine Persico as the new boss. The Second Colombo War continued on and off for the next several years. In 1975, the Gallo faction itself split into 2 groups that started fighting each other. To finally resolve the conflict, the New York families negotiated an agreement in which Albert Gallo and his remaining crew left the Colombo family and peacefully joined the Genovese family. The Gallo Wars were finally over. The family under Persico. Following the high-profile media exposure of Joseph Colombo and the murderous excesses of Joey Gallo, the Colombo family entered a period of comparative calm and stability. With Colombo in a coma, the family leadership went to Thomas DiBella, a man adept at evading the authorities since his sole bootlegging conviction in 1932. However, DiBella was unable to prevent the Gambino family from chipping away at Colombo rackets, and the Colombos declined in power. Poor health forced DiBella to retire in 1977, and Colombo died in 1978. The Colombo family was facing another power vacuum. During the 1970s, Carmine Persico had grown in stature within the family and was considered to be the clear successor as boss. However, Persico had spent much of this time in prison, and it was unclear if he could effectively rule the family from prison. Nevertheless, Persico took control, designating Gennaro Langella as his street boss. In 1986, both men were convicted on massive racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations Act, RICO, charges and were sentenced to 100 years. In 1988, Persico named Vittorio Orena as the new acting boss. It was understood that Vittorio Orena was merely keeping the boss chair warm for Alphonse Persico, Carmine's son. Third Family War, 1991 to 1993. Vittorio Orena, an ambitious capo from Cittadust, was initially content with serving as acting boss. However, in 1990, using his strong ties to Gambino boss John Gotti, Orena petitioned the Mafia Commission to declare him the official boss of the Colombo family. Unwilling to cause more conflict, the commission refused. Orena then instructed Consigliere Carmine Sessa to poll the capos on whether Orena should become boss. Instead, Sessa alerted Persico that Orena was staging a palace coup. On June 21, 1991, an enraged Persico sent gunmen under Sessa's leadership to murder Orena at his house. However, Orena managed to escape before the gunmen could strike. The Third Colombo War had begun. While both sides appealed to the Commission for help, the war continued. On November 1991, Gregory Scarpa, a Persico loyalist, was driving his daughter and granddaughter home when several Orena gunmen ambushed them. Scarpa and his relatives managed to escape. The war continued until 1992, when law enforcement imprisoned Orena and most of his loyalists. 12 people, including 3 innocent bystanders, died in this gang war. More than 80 made members and associates from both sides of the Colombo family were convicted, jailed, or indicted. These included Persico's brother Theodore Teddy Persico and his son Alphonse Persico, John de Ross, and Orena's 2 sons, Victor Jr. Orena and John Orena. While the Colombo War raged, the Commission refused to allow any Colombo member to sit on the Commission and considered dissolving the family. Lucchese underboss Anthony Casso proposed to merge the family with his own to end the war, while in 2000 plans were proposed to split its manpower and resources among the remaining families. In 2002, with the help of Bonanno crime family boss Joseph Massino, the commission finally allowed the Colombos to rejoin them. The family after Third Colombo War. Carmine Persico, the winner more or less by default, designated his son Alphonse Persico as acting boss. Little Ally Boy officially took over after his 1995 parole, but didn't rule for long. In 1999, he was arrested in Fort Lauderdale after being caught in possession of a pistol and shotgun. As a convicted racketeer, he was barred from carrying guns. Shortly afterward, he ordered the murder of underboss William Cutolo, a supporter of Arena during the Third Colombo War. Cutolo's son, vowing revenge, offered to wear a wire and pose as a prospective Colombo associate. Based on evidence from this wire, Little Ally Boy was indicted on RICO charges. Realizing he stood no chance of acquittal, he pleaded guilty to the state charges in February 2000 and to the RICO charges in December 2001. In 2004, Alphonse Persico and underboss John DeRoss were indicted for the Cutolo murder. In December 2007, both men were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. When Alphonse Persico went to prison, Thomas Joly became the new street boss. In June 2008, Joly, underboss John Franzese, former consigliere Joel Caccase, Captain Dino Calabro, mob soldier Dino Saraceno and several members and associates were indicted on multiple racketeering charges which included loan sharking, extortion, and 3 murders dating back to the Colombo Wars. If convicted, they are all facing life sentences. After Joly was imprisoned, Ralph F. Dillio, who operated from Boston, Massachusetts, became the new street boss. On December 17, 2009, the FBI charged Dillio and Colombo family members with drug trafficking, extortion and loan sharking in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Florida, and Arkansas. After Dillio was imprisoned, Andrew "Andy Mush" Russo became the new street boss. On January 20, 2011, street boss Andrew Russo, acting underboss Benjamin Castelazzo, consigliere Richard Fusco, and others were charged with murder, narcotics trafficking, and labor racketeering. In September 2011, Castelazzo and Fusco pleaded guilty to reduced charges. In December 2011, it was revealed that Capo Reynold Maragni wore a wire for the FBI and gained information about Thomas Joly's role in the 1999 murder of William Cutolo.